National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, presents a Bravo video event, the Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice. And on today's show, Charitable Giving 2012 with CPA Ken Davis. And now the host of the Business Insurance Zone, the whiz of the biz, insurance columnist Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. We're broadcasting live to a nationwide network of financial planners and advisors from Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And as you can see, our set is set up for our end of the year, Christmas time, and we're talking about charitable giving all this week. If you've missed any of our shows, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, just hop out to our site at www.brokersalliance.com. It's going to be huge. I'll have some other things to give away on that site right now in a little bit of a moment. But before I do that, I want to introduce my special guest who's been with me all last week and now day 4, Ken Davis.
Getting tired of me yet?
Not yet, Ken. I can't get tired of a man who has CLU, ChFC, CFP, and CPA after his name. You're the highly credentialed fiduciary. You're the ambassador between the CPA and the insurance world. You're the diplomatic, diplomacy that has to be done. You're our guy in between because we don't usually talk to each other.
Well, you know it's your fault, Steve.
Well, why is that?
Well, we used to work together many years ago, and I'd walk down the hall, and you would see me in the hall, and at that point I just had my CPA and CFP. Mm-hmm. And you would go, Ken Davis, CPA, CLU, ChFC, CFP.
I remember that.
Did I get them all? I think I screwed it up. Anyway.
I think you did. You didn't even know what you had.
It even confuses me, for gosh sake. But anyway, you were the one that motivated me to get to the CLU and ChFC. So.
Yeah, because, once you have a CFP and a CPA, it's a couple of courses more and you get them all. So
well, and it's a nice way to catch up on new information. So.
And really, there were some areas in there that really were enlightening to you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But now, and by the way, Ken was former president of the local CPA Society here in Phoenix.
For the local chapter.
For the local chapter. But he has taught, I have taught as well, but interestingly enough, Ken has taught at the CPA Society at the state level, and he taught on life and annuities, and they didn't throw him out of the society. That's the shocker.
2 different 8-hour courses.
Unbelievable, and they were okay with that.
Well, yeah, they wanted real good inside information. They didn't want to be sold things. They wanted to know the pluses and the minuses, and that's why they came and spent a couple $100 a day.
That's why they went
come
to
listen
Ken
to an insurance guy sell. So,
Well, listen, we're going to give away. I want to talk a little bit about our giveaways today because it's going to be huge. This show, all 5 shows on charitable giving, which doesn't have to necessarily be an end-of-the-year issue because we were talking about charitable replacement annuities, right?
Charitable gift annuities.
Or gift annuities. There are a lot of things out there that you don't have to wait till the end of the year to do.
Sure.
Because they're income-driven.
Well, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
We always think that we file tax returns and then we get our refunds. But the fact of the matter is a lot of our wealthy clients do quarterly estimates. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so their tax accountant can help them say, okay, if I gave this $100,000 gift, what is it going to look like for 2012? And then adjust their quarterly estimates accordingly. Mm-hmm. And so much quicker get that back. So they don't have to wait till year end.
Yeah, in fact, actually, you just brought up a huge tactical issue here. There are people that pay quarterly. Well, heck, you have to, right? It's an issue. You have to do it.
Yep.
And I can make those adjustments now. I don't have to wait till the end to make it. So I get a little cash flow going.
Well, and the other way to do it is to go to your HR department and change your W-4 so that you have higher deductions on it if that's the way you pay your
on my W-4, I have 50 children. Just trying to not pay
all by the same wife, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. I've been married to the same girl.
Let's make sure that's clear.
That's exactly right. I need charitable giving in the worst way.
You're going to need some help with your wife when you get home today.
That's okay. She never watches the show.
Smart woman.
Yeah. I got to tell you, our show is kind of narrow in its target, but actually, with all the people that are watching our show in charitable giving today, especially, we're talking about gifting new life insurance policy. Well, actually, any life insurance policy doesn't have to be necessarily new, but we're looking at gifting of annuities, gifting of life insurance. There's a lot of stuff out there that can be done, and I think that we're a little still clumsy. I'm just saying, as advisors, we're still not really sure how to do this. There's this: what's the value of the policy? What's the transfer for value rules? Who makes the call on all this? Are we using the cash value? Are we using the death benefit? Are we using the interpolated reserve? There's a lot of questions here, Ken. Help us to sort it out, because I think there are people here who say, hey, I really don't need that policy. And, the settlement market being the way it is, right? Maybe that's not the way to go.
Well, let's talk about the newer policies first, because that's simpler, and then we can get into some of the details. We have to make sure that when we go to get a policy that there's an insurable interest, and that's the age-old issue with life insurance, is it has to be an insurable interest. So what does that mean in the case of giving, right? Well, generally clients that have a prior relationship with the charity of either giving time or money to a charity, that's what the underwriter is going to want to see from a financial underwriting standpoint. So we're going to have to be able to present a picture that this isn't just a wagering kind of thing. That's what the government's afraid of, is people just buying a policy and wagering on their life, and that's just not acceptable from a legal standpoint for obvious reasons. So there has to be some sort of relationship. Maybe they've acted as an officer on the board, given time, given money, all that kind of thing. So insurable interest is important. And then more critical is some of the state laws. Each state has different laws.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the bugaboo here, because some things we might say for the state that we're doing the broadcast out of, which is Arizona, seems to be a little bit more relaxed in their interpretation, because we had a case of a charity where the charity says this is a major donor, and if this person's not here to make those ongoing donations, we would suffer as an organization. And that was enough to allow us to put this on, which generally maybe would have what I would say, I'm not saying it's not justified, but it would be a little more difficult to prove it.
Right. Now, the simpler part of a brand new policy is the way you want to structure it is you don't want to buy the policy and then gift it, because you may have issues with the insurable interest, valuation problems after you already own the policy. What you want to do is you want to give the gift to a charity. And we're going to talk about community foundations later on as an administrative
And that sets the precedent, the history that, hey, I am donating.
So we give it to the charity and get a deduction for it. And then the charity turns around, has to agree to purchase a life policy. And there could be some legal documents of, hey, in exchange for me giving you this money, you have to pledge to use this money to pay for the policy. You have to pledge that this money is going to endow for maybe the music program at your church or whatever it is that you want to do. And that you will actually use these premiums to purchase this policy and not cash it in and use it, because you're going to have to irrevocably gift the policy to the charity and make them the irrevocable beneficiary. So there's legal things here. Be aware that you'd think, gosh, I'm going to give $100,000 or $40,000 a year in premium for a life policy. That they go, well, yeah, give me the money, we'll do it. But there's been some scams going on, trying to use charities for stranger-owned insurance, and this is really, really sensitive and it's problematic in the industry. So they look at some of these gifts with a jaundiced eye. And then some of the more practical things are, this looks like it's going to work, but what if the client stops making payments? And that might be, as an insurance professional, where you come in and say, okay, gee, we could do the guaranteed universal life, but if I ever stop making premiums, there's no cash value to carry it. Well, instead, maybe you do a 10-pay. Clients like that anyway, because they're only committing for 10 years. But you're building up some serious cash value, maybe with a moderate guarantee to life expectancy, age 90 or something. And then there's cash value that if 5 years into it, they say, gosh, I'm tired of this, or I want to do other things with my money, or I need the money to live on. You can stop, reduce the face, and it can carry itself.
Well, Ken, I want to go back to one thing, because this is incredible, because now I've been in this business 30 years, and not only in our outlet, our channel that we function in, supplying producers with product, but most of the charitable giving I've seen over the years is they did the policy first, then they donated it. But you're saying, no, go around, go make the money, get the docs online, so that the client, the charity has to commit to the client to buy the. Now, what's the big reason on this? Because if it's a big reason, I think that's a new idea, and it's really going against the grain.
Well, here's one of the things, and as I started to get into it, and I discovered this myself, and I just want to make sure people don't make mistakes and get into issues. You have to do, when you give an in-kind policy, instead of giving cash, actually gifting over the policy. Well, sometimes people are trying to avoid going through the financial underwriting, but then you could run into insurability interest at the state level, and the deduction may be disallowed if there's not an insurable interest. You don't meet the state's rules, and that did in fact happen in New York in one of the court cases. But the fact is that when you gift now, because it's not a cash gift, if it's over $5,000, there has to be an appraisal. An appraisal by a qualified appraiser as defined by the Internal Revenue Service, and you as the agent can't be the qualified appraiser. You think you are because you're qualified, but you have a vested interest. You have an axe to grind in this case. And boy, when you look around, it's not easy to find appraisers. I was able to find a couple. I've checked out one. If somebody, they want to call in and find out if they want to gift some insurance, we can help them find somebody that has those kinds of credentials. But in this particular case, it was $350, I think it was, for the appraisal. And finding out what the fair market value of a policy is up front's pretty easy. If you did it, a couple days afterwards or a month after, it's pretty much going to be what the premium was. But if you get too far out, now we start getting into interpolated terminal reserves, and you have to get statements from the company and give it to the appraiser. The charity has to sign off on one of the documents. It gets kind of complicated.
It's just a lot cleaner to just go ahead and
just give them the cash.
Give them the cash, and then get a doc that says the charity's actually going forward with purchasing the policy, so it leverages your gift.
That's right.
And be done with it that way. It's funny though, but like I said, the trend is way the other way. I mean, it's counterintuitive, right?
Well, it's usually because we don't want to mess around with the financial underwriting,
right.
and don't want the insurance companies. Once it's issued, they don't really seem to care a whole lot.
Right.
I actually had one of the technical departments just tell me to do it that way, which surprised me. But the fact of the matter is, it's go through the underwriting. It might actually protect you because then you have determined there is an insurable risk, and you've got the legal department and people at the insurance company kind of backing you up on that. So just a safety thing.
It's an amazing to me what I'm about to bring up here is because we're talking about the leveraging of gifts. And if I'm really going to go ahead and do the very thing you said, which is have the charity buy the policy, I want to be buying, if at all possible, I want to be buying survivorship. Second to die, the leverage.
Yeah, the leverage is pretty amazing. The particular case that I ran into, $40,000 a year for 10 years or 400 grand was a required minimum distribution we talked about in the last segment. And turn around, that was the base policy was about $1 million, and then it was an indexed life, and so because it was building high cash values and you had decent returns on the stuff, it was illustrating at about $1.7 million at their life expectancy 20 years later. So think about that: $40,000 a year for 10 years to buy $1.7 million, and if they die halfway in, it's only it's $200, not $400,000 for some really substantial life insurance.
Second to die, the leverage is huge. If people a case where they were both preferred, non-smoker, mom and dad, 65, 62, that was like almost a 6-to-1 ratio. Wow. That kind of leverage is real giving. I mean, that's when you're taking, boy, just thinking about this, I'm just looking at the stats. Maybe you'll have to talk about it when we come back because that is a huge issue. You're listening to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that focuses on insurance in your practice. You can email me at the show's email address, thebiz@brokersalliance.com, or just call toll-free 1-800-290-7226, extension 147. Ken and I will be right back after a word from our premier provider of guaranteed term and guaranteed UL, Legal & General America.
Banner Life Insurance Company and its subsidiary, William Penn Life Insurance Company of New York, comprise the Legal & General America companies, part of the International Legal & General Group, one of the largest insurance companies in the world. Now, Legal & General America is one of the top-rated insurance companies in America, with one of the strongest financial balance sheet among its peers. Legal & General America is a major player in guaranteed term and guaranteed universal life, and consistently ranks among the best carriers in almost every product spreadsheet. Legal & General America's product line of guaranteed universal life endows at the maturity date, while most carriers' cash values just zero out. You know the reputation of Banner? Now know the value of LGA, Legal & General America. The power to protect, the power to preserve, the power to serve their policyholders. That's Legal & General America.
Steve Savant, your host, insurance columnist, financial color commentator, and interviewer extraordinaire. Remember, before moving forward with any of the strategy you hear on this show, especially this week, always check in and get approval from your CPA, your tax attorney, and your broker-dealer compliance department. You can call me toll-free 1-800-290-7226, extension 147 for any of your quotes or questions you have on life insurance, annuities, DI, LTC, and group pension plans. It's not what I know, it's who I know, and that's why I have only the best on this show, and that's why I have Ken Davis, CLU, ChFC, CFP, and CPA. And we're talking about charitable giving all this week. You can see our set. It's holiday time. I mean, I hope you're getting, I just got a gift in between sessions here from one of my wholesalers. Oh my gosh, is she sucking up, right? What's the deal on that, right? Ken, I want to talk to you before we get into, because we're going to hit a huge one. I just want to clean up our thing on the survivorship for a second. When you look at the leverage, and I mean, think about that, 6 to 1. I mean, you put $100,000 down on the deposit, that buys you $600,000. And remember, heads up, some charities, not all, but some charities sometimes match. So if you gave $100,000 and they have a huge player in the charity and they match that $100,000, oh my goodness, you're giving serious money now. So I just want to remind you, every time we can, we want to try to use survivorship if it's possible. I mean, it's not always possible. But if we can, the leverage is just too great. Okay, just enough preaching?
Fair enough.
All right, fair enough. All right, now, Ken, there's a little thing on the street. People say, no, we should do endowment. No, we should do operational gifts. It's kind of a yin and a yang. There's guys on both sides of this planet, good men and women. Let's hear your thing. Tell me what they both are, and then tell me what the advantages and or disadvantages.
Well, there's two different kinds of primary gifts to a charity. One is there's people in the world that go, oh my gosh, there's people living on the street. I want to get my money to those folks as quickly as possible and help them out. It hurts to see human suffering. So here, take my money and go out and do some good things with them. And that's called operational budget. That's spend it now, not later. Then there's other people who go, gosh, you know, I make a $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 gift each year. And the program that I support, I have a strong proclivity for. And when I pass away, who's going to keep making those payments? Does that mean that program's going to go away? So in perpetuity, I want to make sure that even after I'm gone, that these programs continue on. Or maybe they say, gee, we get plenty of operating income, but I'm concerned about having a stable environment through bad economies and stuff like that with the ups and downs of giving. I just want to provide some stability. And those are endowments. And all an endowment is here's a chunk of money, $100 grand, $1 million, whatever, put it into a foundation. And the foundation generally will pay 5% of the donation each year as an ongoing budget item. So ultimately it becomes a operational gift, but it's a delayed or a future kind of thing. And there's two different viewpoints. Now here's what's interesting. The charities, while they love the endowments, they're concerned about maybe they're going to pull out of their operational budget, which they need to live on now, even now more than ever.
More than ever, right.
And put it into a deferred gift, and they go, gosh, we really don't want to do that. Well, studies have shown, interestingly enough, that when somebody gives a major endowment or substantial endowment to a charity, they've really bought into that charity. They have a vested interest in seeing that charity continue on and those programs continue on, and guess what? Their operational gifts frequently increase, not decrease. So these fears that we have aren't necessarily founded. Could it happen? Sure. But I think on average, the experience is it actually increases. So what we're talking about with leveraging life insurance is really more of an endowment kind of thing, where we're putting lump sums in to fund future income flow for them to use on programs.
That kind of leads me to my thing. I'm always thinking of, should I be giving cash or should I be giving non-cash? You know, we're talking about endowment or operational gifts. Now I'm kind of, should I give cash or should I give non-cash? What's your thinking on that?
Well, it really depends upon, we talked earlier in one of the shows, if you've got appreciated assets, you can give the full value of say, an appreciated stock and not have to pay taxes on the conversion of that asset to cash. So it makes more sense to give that.
Well, let's go a little eclectic here because, I think a lot of our advisors are pretty hip on that. But I mean, I just saw one of our clients, the advisor brought a client who were doing their second to die, and they were listing all their assets, and I noticed, major money in art. And they bought it, and their basis is, I have to say, compared to what it's worth now, it's nothing. So here they have all this art, right? And what are they going to do with it? And they have cash, but they don't really want to make themselves cash poor. We keep thinking always in securities, stocks and bonds, but there's other things of value to give that are non-cash items.
Well, that's true. And when you get into non-cash items, be very careful that you use an advisor, because is it a capital asset? Was it held for investment? Which rules apply to the situation? So before you go down that route and think, gosh, I got $1 million picture and I'm going to, I spent $10,000, I'm going to get a full deduction. It may be in some cases, and honestly, I don't know the rules on giving art, but it could be the lower of tax basis. Or the valuation.
And an authentic appraiser who really understands art and what's it worth.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I don't know the answer to that question because that's really not something that we spend time on.
Red letter day on my show. Ken does not know the answer to the question. Wow. Okay, that'll be on your reading for this weekend.
Don't go there, Steve. You got to ask me about this stuff, so I look like I know this stuff. So
we're here to ambush. And listen, we have a CPA on our show. We're here to ambush the fiduciary. That's the name.
Hey, there we go.
I want to start a new show called, like Stump the CPA. Not Stomp the CPA. I said Stump the CPA. Well, Ken, I appreciate that. But we have to have appraisers. I'm just thinking non-cash. I just think we think too narrow sometimes.
Right.
And I just want to open us up to a lot bigger horizon vistas. That we say, oh my gosh, there's a lot of value here, and again, we have to make sure the different tax treatments are there,
sure,
and appraisals on the item we're giving.
Right.
But it's I kind of always think, well, they just want cash. Well, maybe not. Maybe they can sell this better than you can sell it, and I just want to get us outside stocks, bonds, and regular securities.
That gets us into another areas. Now that I'm starting to think about the deductibilities, if you give like a piece of art that's actually going to be used in an art museum, so you're going to get different treatment then their intent is just to turn around and cash it in and take the money. So that's part of this whole process. If you have to have an agreement that if you really think they're going to use it, like here in Phoenix, we get the Musical Instrument Museum, which is just this phenomenal museum that they put $95 million into this thing. Well, if you give a musical instrument, it's used for the display, that's one thing. But if it's going to be turned around and cashed out or exchanged or whatever, there's my understanding in the tax laws, there's some different treatments on those. So,
well, I want to move down our list here because this is a big list, and that's why I said you got to go out to www.brokersalliance.com/charitable giving. Out there, you'll see the 5 video series this week, including in that we'll have our 1040 overlay. We have the 2010 study. Why don't you just show them that picture of that entire study? It's really great. The 10-day study on high net worth and philanthropy, as well as we're going to have out there a whole charitable giving booklet that we've done ourselves. I think you're just going to find it as a huge advantage.
Well, and the study talks about high net worth givers and talks about their giving practices and where they give and why they give and all this other stuff. And so for those of our listeners that are trying to penetrate high net worth people, we talked about the fact that 90% of the planned giving comes from the initiation of the client to the advisor. Only 10% is being solicited by the advisor to the client.
I know, that's so strange.
Wonderful opportunity for them to get a foot in the door and offer a service that the regular team of advisors that these high net worth people have aren't addressing and falling flat on their face on it. So,
well, let's just move on to this next section here. I've been in this a long time. I can't believe you thought of this and not me. Converting a term contract into cash value contract for the gift purposes.
Right.
Boy, that went by me.
Well, we know the controversy surrounding life settlements, and we know that we have third-party buyers and stuff, so we have to stay away from all that, all those shams and shenanigans going on there, and the charities have been abused on that, and they're very sensitive to that. But you got somebody that's, they were 45 when they bought it. It was a 20-year term insurance policy. Now they're 65, and let's say that they had some heart issues or cancer issues or whatever, and they really don't have the money to be paying these premiums, and they're about ready to give it away, and we happen to know as the advisor that they're very involved with, say, the Red Cross or something like that. Wouldn't it be cool if we suggested, as the advisor suggests to the client, you have the right to convert this guaranteed issue at preferred rates into a guaranteed universal life policy, or one where we design a heavy cash value like I talked about earlier. Give the term insurance policy to the charity, or actually convert it to cash and then give it to the charity, And then also, maybe they say, hey, it's worth using their own monies to make the premium payments, or maybe you can afford to make the payments and get charitable gifts.
Especially when you said when he bought it at 45, maybe he was preferred or whatever, but later on in life, he had some impairments and so forth that are going to shorten his life expectancy.
Right.
And they're thinking, wow, conversion of this, money in, money out, that might be a pretty good deal.
Right.
One last thing I want to talk about, Ken, I like this. We gifted this policy that we had to the charity, and now I have to replace it.
Right.
We'll talk a little bit about that with our time waning.
Well, if you get a guaranteed issue, you don't have to do much. You get a guaranteed issue. You can be the agent of record on the thing and make some money on the conversion. And boy, I'm always all about helping the client, helping the charities, and why not the agent while we're doing it?
By the way, I have to say this is a huge suggestion by Ken. Guaranteed issue, maybe even simplified issue. Easy to do. I mean, our rates on simplified issue are up at around $350,000 on death benefit now. And that means that, hey, well, my client's not feeling well, whatever his impairments, don't sweat that issue. If that's all you're worried about, simplified or guaranteed issue. Wow. And listen, you'll be wanting to come back tomorrow because we're going to close out this week with things that are going to help you get in front of people that you've never gotten in front of before. You can watch this show and all our shows, of course, in beautiful HD 1080p on our on-demand section right on our homepage at www.brokersalliance.com, and of course on all our social networks, Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I'm Steve Savant. You've been listening to the Business Insurance Zone. That's the buzz on the biz for today. Get in the zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. Need insurance guidance? Call Brokers Alliance. The Business